Hello everyone. Welcome back to Onichan. Today we're going to watch the all-powerful Sakamoto together. This is an anime that's incredibly funny and super quirky. It's also the start of a new school year. I hope you all will enjoy it with great enthusiasm. On the schoolyard, there's a group of students playing ball, feeling annoyed about someone. It seems like they're all irritated with a classmate named Sakamoto. The reason is because he's handsome and is surrounded by girls, making them really jealous. At Kenritsu High School, in the Advanced Literature program, Grade 10, in Class 1 to 2, there's a new transfer student who has caught everyone's attention. Every action he takes, whether it's cleaning duties, having lunch, or getting punished in the hallway, is always done with style. All his actions are super cool. And he is none other than our saint, Sakamoto. Just like any other day, 3 classmates come up with a plan. They intend to harm our saint, but a girl comes over to stop them, and they say it's just a joke. A joke? Looking at their faces, they're clearly annoyed as heck. But being a saint, these kinds of tricks are nothing to him. Sakamoto easily catches the chalkboard eraser that the kids set up on the doorframe in a cool manner. Accompanied by the cheers of the classmates, the 3 friends are beyond frustrated. Even when the saint goes to the bathroom, they don't leave him alone, following with the intention of dumping a bucket of water into the restroom he just entered. But little did they know, Sakamoto brought an umbrella with him. The saint has already predicted the future, hasn't he? Sakamoto used an umbrella to shield himself from the water that the guys splashed on him, doing it in an incredibly stylish manner. These guys sure have a lot of tricks up their sleeves. They even threw Sakamoto's desk and chair out of the classroom when they saw that he didn't have a desk. Many girls in the class invited him to sit with them, but our cool guy refused and decided to climb onto the windowsill with a completely carefree attitude, which made the girls in the class cheer. It seems like the 3 friends are starting to get really annoyed with the saint. Even though they've faced many failures, the 3 of them are still determined not to let the saint go. While secretly smoking in an alley, the 3 friends decided to deal with Sakamoto seriously. While they were cleaning the desks in the classroom, one of them was cleaning so vigorously that the desk practically started shining. You guys. Then, a friend came to find Sakamoto to tell him that the teacher wanted him to prepare for tomorrow's lesson. He reminded him to go to the chemistry room after school. When Sakamoto got there, someone suddenly pulled him in and shut the door. It turned out that it was the 3 classmates of the saint playing another trick. It's unclear what they want to do as they tie Sakamoto up. It seems like they want to harm the saint. One of them suggested taking nude photos of Sakamoto and showing them to the girls in the class. This guy is really something else, isn't he? What's even more shocking is that the others agreed to that idea. While they were happily taking pictures, a fire suddenly broke out, causing everyone to panic and run. But the door was jammed and couldn't be opened. When they took out their phones to call for help, the batteries were dead. They're really a bunch of troublemakers, aren't they, everyone? As the fire grew larger, the 3 of them began to clutch their heads in distress. It always has to be the saint who handles things. Sakamoto used his ultimate move, jumping back and forth multiple times, probably to make a loud noise for the teacher to hear. For some reason, the other guys thought he did it to create wind to put out the fire. So the 3 of them started jumping around without knowing why they were even doing it. Thanks to that, the teachers heard the noise. The gym teacher came in and saw 4 guys jumping around the fire like they were doing a rain dance, totally speechless. After the incident, Sakamoto covered for his friends and told the teacher that it was his fault. Surely now, his fan club has gained 3 new members. Sakamoto got punished and had to write a report, as he took full responsibility, to the surprise of his 3 friends. It seems that after this, the 3 guys were truly impressed with him, and Sakamoto also won their hearts. Oh, what a 4-way love. Today in class, a guy named Sarah was boasting to the girls about being featured in a magazine. While he was showing off, a girl came in with a newspaper, and right on the front page was our saint, flying through a storm to save a bird. This made the girls really curious, and they gave all their attention to Sarah, making him quite bitter, because Sakamoto always gets more attention than him. It seems like Sarah is plotting something to bring down the saint. During the next class, after Sakamoto spoke and received praise from the teacher, Sarah secretly pulled his chair, hoping he would fall flat on his face. But life doesn't always go as planned. Sakamoto sat without the chair, to the amazement of the girls. And Sarah was completely shocked. "You shouldn't have messed with him, kiddo." During gym class, even after using all his strength to throw the ball, Sakamoto easily dodged it. Sarah, holding onto his frustration, went to wash his face, only to find that the faucet was broken. To make matters worse, he looked over and saw all the girls surrounding Sakamoto. Life is really as unlucky as a dog sometimes. Ever since he decided to go against the saint, Sarah's life has been nothing but a dead end. He planned to remove the warning sign about the broken faucet to get Sakamoto in trouble. But instead, not only did it fail, Sakamoto used it as another chance to impress the girls. During the exam, the whole class became chaotic when a queen bee flew into the classroom. The girls all ran out and locked the door, trapping the boys and the teacher inside. Truly, they're fans of peach blossoms. The dirty-minded teacher came up with the idea that everyone should take off their uniforms, since bees usually target moving black objects. Sarah, at first, was acting tough, mocking everyone, but when everyone actually started taking off their uniforms, and the bee got close, he quickly stripped and covered his head like everyone else. Only our saint, Sakamoto, remained calmly seated in his spot. When Sarah saw the bee land on Sakamoto's head, he decided to try and get the bee to attack him, to draw attention, but because Sakamoto dodged, the bee flew straight towards Sarah. In fear, Sarah dropped to the floor. As always, everything had to be handled by the saint. He immediately jumped up and used his dragon's technique to duel with the bee, just like a true warrior. Finally, the saint caught the bee and released it out the window. Amidst the cheers of everyone, Sarah looked on with eyes full of admiration. Another member has been added to the fan club. Today, while Sakamoto was feeding birds in a tree, he accidentally saw a student being mugged by two others. Our saint went over to talk to the student, and the student pleaded for his help. All the money he had lied to his mom to get had been stolen. Sakamoto came up with an idea to help him. But seriously, who would have thought the saint's solution would be like this? Instead of some grand scheme, both of them applied for part-time jobs at a restaurant. They were assigned kitchen duties by Ms. Matsuyama. After Sakamoto made his grand, shining entrance, instead of working in the kitchen, he was immediately promoted to the cashier position. That's the protagonist's aura for you. Meanwhile, the other guy had to work hard in the kitchen, thinking about how he would have to lie to his mom again to ask for more money. Because he couldn't possibly keep working tomorrow, he was too exhausted. Thanks to Sakamoto's charisma, more and more customers kept coming into the restaurant. Kubota was assigned to fry potatoes since there was no one else. Finally, they managed to get through the rush hour, all thanks to Sakamoto's effect. For the first time, the restaurant was completely full. Although very tired, Kubota felt incredibly happy when Ms. Matsuyama praised him, and he started to work even harder. He experienced joy and satisfaction from working for the first time and earning money. He even thought about getting his hair straightened. During today's shift, the two bullies who always mugged Kubota happened to walk into the restaurant, which made him extremely nervous. And sure enough, his worst fear came true. Those two spotted him. They taunted Kubota and told him to meet them at the park after work, with the threat that if he didn't show up, they'd make him regret it. Kubota was extremely frightened. All of this was witnessed by Sakamoto. That evening, after finishing work, Kubota went to the park as promised. The bullies once again threatened him and demanded his money like they always did. When Kubota was about to hand over the money as usual, he remembered Sakamoto's words and decided to stand up to them. Both of the thugs attacked him, beating him up badly, but Kubota remained determined because this was the money he had earned with his own hard work. He was resolute in protecting his money. Suddenly, a plastic arrow shot and hit one of the thugs on the neck. Sakamoto appeared, saying he had forgotten to give the bullies something when they bought food at the restaurant earlier. And then, out of nowhere, our saint performed a flash-like movement, unleashing his technique, the untraceable breeze. In short, he used a straw to blow air into the red-haired thug's ear, which completely knocked him out. Next, the saint performed the legendary Sweet Rebellion counter, where he used the water from a jelly cup and splashed it into the blonde thug's eyes, making him fall just like the first one. Well, as the cashier of the restaurant, that's all the saint needed to do. The rest was left to Kubota. After some hesitation, Kubota charged at the bullies with a barrage of attacks like the burger assault and potato salt strike, and so on, beating them until the two thugs had no choice but to flee. Even as they ran away, they didn't miss the chance to shout threats at Sakamoto and Kubota, saying they'd remember this. Totally lame. Kubota realized that what he needed to protect wasn't himself or the money, but his self-respect. During class, when Aina noticed Sakamoto staring in her direction, she got really excited, but then felt disappointed when she realized he was just looking at the board to take notes, not at her. Aina was popular with many boys in class because of her charming demeanor. Today, two classmates were praising the bento that Aina made. Then Sarah suddenly appeared, rambling about how rice balls are called onigiri, which left the two boys confused. But Aina found him funny and complimented him, making Sarah blush. Ever since the bee incident, Sarah hadn't been wearing his uniform, opting instead for shorts, making him look like the bee itself. Folks, as for Aina, she had this arrogance that only someone like Sakamoto was worthy of her. So she devised a plan to win him over. The first step of her plan was to invade his personal space, essentially asking him to tutor her in math, pretending to be the worst in class. She even thought about whether to sit on his right or left to avoid blocking his view. But when she saw him writing with both hands, she was stunned and decided to sit in front instead. The second step of her plan was to call him by his first name. But after thinking about it, she realized she didn't even know his real name. So she skipped to step 3, imitating his actions. But after watching Sakamoto casually craft something by hand with such finesse, she gave up and moved to step 4, letting go and finding someone else to chase. Because seriously, who could possibly follow his lead? When she saw Sakamoto stand up, she thought her plan had worked. But it turned out he was just getting up to look at a dog in the schoolyard, leaving her stunned again. Yet, Aina was stubborn and refused to give up. She decided to go ahead with step 5, using the suspension bridge effect. She invited Sakamoto to play the Fox Spirit game with her, pretending that she had something to ask the Fox Spirit but was too scared to do it alone. However, her plan fell apart when two other girls joined them to play, and Sakamoto didn't. Sakamoto sat and watched the others play the game. Somehow, the Fox Spirit possessed Sakamoto. To bring him back, the Fox Spirit demanded that the three build a birdhouse that measured 6 feet. The design was up to them, and the deadline was the school bell signaling the end of class. If they didn't finish in time, Sakamoto's body would be taken to the Fox Spirit's mountain. The three of them decided to stack school desks to form a birdhouse. Aina acted innocent, claiming she couldn't lift anything heavier than a chair. But after the other two scolded her and for Sakamoto's sake, she decided to help out. In the end, they finished the birdhouse, and as if possessed, Sakamoto climbed onto it with no hesitation. After rescuing Sakamoto, the three made up and happily bid farewell to him. From this event, we can see that in an emergency, people come together to achieve a common goal. Unconsciously, their bonds grow closer. Humans are truly interesting. At Sakamoto's school, there's a second-year student named Maruyama, known for bullying and bossing around first years. Surprisingly, even someone like our Saint Sakamoto was one of Maruyama's lackeys. Whenever he whistled, Sakamoto would immediately appear to bring him food, with the most professional attitude. It turned out that Sakamoto wanted to serve Maruyama to cultivate his patience. Sakamoto also believed that juniors following seniors' orders was quite normal. When Maruyama asked for a drink, Sakamoto made him a fancy cocktail. And when Maruyama forgot his gym uniform, Sakamoto sewed him a brand new one. Sakamoto even attended class and did homework for him. Gradually, Maruyama relied on Sakamoto for even the smallest tasks, and his friends noticed that he was becoming increasingly dependent on him. However, Maruyama didn't listen and became lazier. He got to the point where he didn't even want to give orders to Sakamoto himself anymore. So, he told Sakamoto to serve him in whatever way he wanted. While Maruyama was taking care of his personal business, the room he was in ran out of toilet paper unexpectedly. To his surprise, Saint Sakamoto suddenly flew in and handed him a roll. Maruyama felt increasingly satisfied having such a thoughtful underling like Sakamoto. On his way home, he saw Sakamoto warming his shoes before wearing them. However, he no longer wanted to wear them, fearing they would make his feet swollen. So, Sakamoto decided to carry him home using a cart. This terrified him. He ran and hid in a storage room, afraid that Saint Sakamoto had gone insane. But Sakamoto crawled into the storage room through the ventilation duct, making Maruyama tremble with fear. Seeing that Maruyama looked exhausted, Sakamoto made him a bed to rest on. Maruyama began to feel terrified by Sakamoto's extreme service. From then on, he started buying food himself, no longer ordering his underlings around. He was probably traumatized for life. Being the perfect saint, Sakamoto always scored full marks on tests. Meanwhile, Kubota was always at the bottom of the rankings. So, Kubota begged Sakamoto to tutor him at his house every weekend. However, the moment his mother saw Sakamoto, she was completely captivated by his good looks. She even secretly recorded him and acted flirtatious with him in front of her husband. Kubota worried that if this continued, his family would fall apart. So, every time Sakamoto came over to tutor him, Kubota had to hide him from his mother. But one time, while studying, Kubota suddenly realized he had left his notebook in the classroom. So, he left Sakamoto alone at home and ran to school to retrieve it. While Kubota was outside, his mother discovered Sakamoto's shoes in the cabinet. Realizing Sakamoto was there, she started searching everywhere to find him. However, with his stealth skills like a ninja, Sakamoto easily avoided Kubota's mother's sight. But then his phone suddenly rang, and she discovered Sakamoto was hiding in the bathroom. Sakamoto splashed water on her and quickly escaped. It turned out that Kubota's mother liked Sakamoto because he resembled a Korean actor. Suddenly, Sakamoto appeared and threw a disc into her DVD player. Then jumped into the TV. Sakamoto told her that he was actually from the virtual world. This left Kubota's mother heartbroken, like she had just been dumped. In reality, Sakamoto had hidden behind the TV, and the person she saw on the screen was just footage from the DVD. After that, Sakamoto and Kubota started studying at the library instead of at Kubota's house. Mr. Kata was in charge of school discipline and was quite annoyed because every time it was time to lock the school gates, he would see Sakamoto rushing in late. Today, Sakamoto was even carrying a bamboo pole. Seeing this, Mr. Kata thought Sakamoto would use the pole to jump over the fence. So he chased after him to stop him. But little did he know that Sakamoto was only using the pole as a distraction. Then Sakamoto walked through the front gate as usual. Mr. Kata spent the whole day fuming because Sakamoto had tricked him. So he made up his mind to catch Sakamoto violating a school rule in order to get his revenge. While he was frantically searching, he saw Saint Sakamoto standing in the corner of an alley with some classmates, looking like they were smoking. So, he ran in to catch Sakamoto red-handed. But, it turned out they were just playing with soap bubbles, not smoking like he had thought. During cleaning duty, Mr. Kata scolded Sakamoto for not taking it seriously because he kept standing the broom upright. But in reality, Sakamoto was using 2 brooms to clean the ceiling, leaving the teacher speechless during Mr. Kata's class. Sakamoto sat and studied with extreme seriousness, not making a single mistake. But suddenly, the teacher saw Sakamoto taking out his lunch and eating in class. So, he punished Sakamoto by making him stand outside the classroom for doing personal activities during lesson time. After getting revenge on Sakamoto, he felt extremely happy and satisfied. However, he soon discovered that our saint was intentionally taking the punishment to go outside and save an injured bird. The saint's noble act moved Mr. Kata to tears. During art class, the teacher asked the students to draw a portrait of a classmate. So Aina and the others scrambled to draw Sakamoto's portrait. After finishing the drawing, Aina was nearly shocked because Sakamoto's drawing made her look like a monkey. But when she flipped it upside down, it looked just like a fairy, bringing her back from despair. Aina even started fantasizing that Sakamoto liked her too. Shortly afterward, the school conducted a fire drill. But during roll call, no one could find Akin. Sakamoto frantically rushed back into the school, dousing a bucket of water over his head to search for him. It turned out that Akin was busy in the bathroom and didn't realize the school was holding an evacuation drill. Sakamoto slowly crawled to where Akin was. Then, as if there were a real fire, the saint heroically carried Akin out, while creating a parachute for himself, flying down to the schoolyard in front of everyone's astonished eyes. During the holiday, The three troublemakers gathered at the park to dig a trap to catch others. They were extremely surprised to see that Sakamoto had fallen into the trap. But when they rushed over, they couldn't find him anywhere. Feeling that Sakamoto's disappearance was too mysterious, they searched everywhere for him but couldn't find him. However, they accidentally discovered a deep hole beneath the one they had dug and believed Sakamoto had tunneled through to the other side of the earth. But as they went down, Akin spotted Sakamoto on top of the hole. It turned out that the saint had dug the hole thinking the troublemakers were digging for a hot spring. At school, the second-year student Hayabusa was highly revered by the underclassmen for being both a strong fighter and intelligent. Considered the top man in the school. While walking down the hallway with his friends, Hayabusa saw Sakamoto receiving cheers and admiration from the female students. Realizing that Sakamoto used to be Maruyama's errand boy, and seeing Maruyama's face go pale at the sight of Sakamoto, Hayabusa remembered the incident where Sakamoto had made Maruyama run to the bathroom to vomit. This made Hayabusa wonder what Sakamoto might have done to Maruyama while working for him. After inquiring about Sakamoto's class, Hayabusa was warned by both his underclassmen and Maruyama that Sakamoto was very dangerous. Despite the warnings, Hayabusa was determined to bother Sakamoto. While idly chatting in class, Hayabusa went to find Sakamoto. When Hayabusa asked Sakamoto to show him some respect, Sakamoto took a lump of clay, slammed his face into it, and then handed it to Hayabusa. This left Hayabusa stunned. Suddenly, several girls in the class seemed possessed, rushing to grab the clay with Sakamoto's face on it from Hayabusa. Seeing the commotion, Hayabusa found it amusing and threw the clay away, smashing it into pieces. He even stomped on it, causing the girls to be terrified. Meanwhile, Sakamoto remained completely nonchalant. Hayabusa arranged to meet Sakamoto at the riverbank after school. However, Sakamoto declined because he was busy with chores that day. While Sakamoto was in the bathroom, two of Hayabusa's underclassmen stole his shoes and left a note saying he had to go to the riverbank to get them back. Sakamoto decided to fashion a pair of makeshift shoes from socks and skated down the hallway effortlessly. The girls thought he was showcasing a new shoe design. Hayabusa's underclassmen continued to follow Sakamoto, stealing his belongings and leaving notes. Even though Sakamoto lost his things, he always found a way to handle it. During his chores, Sakamoto discovered that Kubota had lost his hair, along with a note on his head. Seeing his friend's distress, Sakamoto decided to attend the meeting to retrieve Kubota's hair. Just as Hayabusa was about to charge at Sakamoto, a police officer appeared and scolded both of them for fighting. Sakamoto explained to the officer that they were just playing a game of pushing each other around, which he thought was sumo wrestling. Believing it to be a sumo pushing game, the officer decided to referee the match. At first, Hayabusa planned to go easy and then find another place to fight Sakamoto. However, Sakamoto's extremely serious expression caught him off guard. The battle began with Hayabusa deciding to attack first. But Sakamoto's feint nearly made Hayabusa fall. This made Hayabusa more serious about the fight. Hayabusa used a martial arts stance to attack Sakamoto, thinking he had won, but the saint was not so easily defeated. When he was about to fall, Sakamoto spun his arms to create centrifugal force to maintain balance and then counterattacked Hayabusa. The fight became increasingly intense. The two of them kept pushing each other even as a storm started, not stopping at all. The battle was so fierce it felt like water and fire. No one could remember how many rounds had been fought. When Hayabusa started to fall behind, two of his underclassmen tried to discreetly pull Sakamoto's legs. However, Hayabusa stopped them because he didn't want to win through dirty tricks, showing he had some sportsmanship. The fight was so intense that Hayabusa was eventually pushed into a taxi by Sakamoto. It turned out that during the fight, Sakamoto had been holding one hand up to call a taxi for Hayabusa, worried that he might catch a cold from standing in the rain. After the fight, Hayabusa and his underclassmen went to Kubota's house to apologize for having his hair shaved off. They even brought a bunch of seaweed for Kubota to eat, hoping it would help his hair grow back faster. Kubota, meanwhile, was still wearing the tree branch hat Sakamoto had given him at school as if it were a wig. Later, they all enjoyed a cheerful party at Kubota's house. As school let out, three boys decided to play a game of kicking pebbles to see who could get their pebble all the way home to win. However, the boys were stunned to see Sakamoto also playing the pebble game as if he had some kind of hack. One of the boys, with brown hair, didn't want to lose, so he tried to keep up with Sakamoto. However, when they reached a road near a canal, all the boys dropped their pebbles into the water. Sakamoto also accidentally dropped his pebble, but he jumped into the canal, kicked the pebble back onto the road, and continued running. The next day, the boys played a game of walking on the line in the road. Seeing Sakamoto effortlessly walk on the line, the brown-haired boy became very frustrated and decided to follow Sakamoto with his friends to see who was faster. When they saw a man walking towards them, Sakamoto reminded him to tie his shoelaces. And then Sakamoto and the boys jumped over the man's head. They continued walking on the line, managing not to step off, going all the way around town until it was almost dark. Sakamoto suddenly stopped as they reached the end of the line. He then took out a roll of paper and laid it out on the road. So they all continued walking happily on the paper as if they were on a high. When they reached the end of the paper, they stopped at a buffet restaurant. The brown-haired boy became very impressed with Sakamoto and pulled out a piece of paper to ask for his autograph. Megumi, the class president in Sakamoto's class, had a secret hobby of secretly photographing Sakamoto. However, she suddenly noticed a ghost following Sakamoto. Megumi was anxious, unsure whether to tell Sakamoto or not, worried that if she did, her secret hobby would be exposed. While Sakamoto was walking down the hallway, a wheelchair suddenly came racing towards him from behind. However, Sakamoto jumped onto the wheelchair and glided into the classroom, much to the cheers of everyone. While Megumi was talking to Sakamoto outside the bathroom, they suddenly heard the sound of running water. They discovered a disturbing bundle of long hair in the sink. Sakamoto took the bundle of hair, wrung it out, and hurried away. It turned out that Sakamoto wanted to use the hair to help his close friend Kubota get his hair back. Megumi was extremely frightened, thinking they were using a ghost's hair. That afternoon, she caught Sakamoto playing a game of butt push with some boys in class. And, as usual, pulled out her camera to take secret photos. However, she saw the ghost trying to communicate something to Sakamoto, and from the ghost's lip movements, she realized it was trying to say it loved Sakamoto. Indeed, even ghosts couldn't resist Sakamoto's charm. Megumi then told Sakamoto about the ghost and its confession of love. Sakamoto printed out his face to thank the ghost, which helped it finally move on. Megumi was then able to courageously take public photos of Sakamoto without sneaking around. The three troublemakers from Sakamoto's class were plotting to sneak into a restricted section of a video store. As they were discussing their plan, they saw Sakamoto and some other girls from their class. So they approached Sakamoto to ask him to sneak into the restricted area and get some forbidden movies. To their surprise, Sakamoto agreed without hesitation, with help from the three troublemakers as lookouts. Sakamoto slowly approached the restricted area. He circled around the section to create a breeze. And when the curtain was lifted by the wind, he sneaked in. Shortly after, Sakamoto emerged with a stack of forbidden movies. When he reached the checkout counter, he encountered the group of girls from his class. He had to place the stack of movies on a nearby shelf and pretended to talk nonsense to distract them. After successfully deceiving the group of girls, Sakamoto hurriedly took the stack of DVDs to the checkout counter. The final hurdle he needed to overcome was the store owner, as only people over 18 were allowed to buy restricted DVDs. However, Sakamoto remained calm and placed the stack of DVDs on the counter without any fear. He presented a fake ID card stating he was 27 years old, which Akin had given him. Despite this, the store owner quickly recognized that Sakamoto was still a high school student. Sakamoto claimed that he could watch all the DVDs in one day and even showed off a fake expensive watch on his wrist to deceive the store owner. Believing Sakamoto to be an adult, the owner reluctantly allowed him to purchase the restricted DVDs. After buying the DVDs, Akin invited everyone to his house to watch them, and the three troublemakers thought Sakamoto must be a professional in this genre. However, when they found out that Sakamoto had never watched these kinds of movies before, Akin decided not to watch them. Sakamoto's school was holding a sports festival for all students. However, Sakamoto's superior skills made it difficult for other students to showcase their talents. So, Sarah encouraged everyone to find ways to sabotage Sakamoto's chances of winning. In the bread biting contest, they tightly tied Sakamoto's bread with a string, making it impossible for him to get it down when he jumped up to bite it. Despite this, Sakamoto spun around multiple times to untie the knot and successfully retrieve the bread. In the next event, the boys had to stack on top of each other to form a tower. The boys at the bottom shook violently to make Sakamoto fall, but he managed to keep his balance and even created a tilted tower, impressing the girls, despite the fact that the supporting characters had to accept their roles and couldn't compete with Sakamoto. Sarah remained determined to sabotage Sakamoto in the relay race. Yagi, a member of Aina's group, was excited to receive the baton from Sakamoto. However, when it was Sakamoto's turn to run, he suddenly fell because Sarah had tied his two shoes together. However, Sakamoto held the baton in his mouth and, with both hands together, ran like a cheetah. When he passed the baton to Yagi, it slipped from her hand because it was wet with Sakamoto's saliva, causing Yagi to fall behind. Yagi cried desperately as she ran. Seeing this, Sarah realized his mistake and decided to help his class win. However, while running, Sarah boasted about his abs, which left everyone speechless. This year's sports festival had Hayabusa and his underlings selling cotton candy. Hayabusa wanted to invite Sakamoto, but Marui panicked. Suddenly, an older student around 30 years old named Fukase, who was repeating a year, approached Hayabusa. He slammed Hayabusa's head onto the floor, interrogating him about his relationship with Sakamoto. Meanwhile, Sakamoto's class was decorating their classroom with balloons. Two lazy students were doing nothing but mocking their balloon figure. Suddenly, Sakamoto covered the balloon figure with a curtain, making it look like a snowman. Soon after, everyone was annoyed when their balloons flew up to the ceiling. Sakamoto used a broom to arrange them into a beautiful spiral pattern. Megumi had created a UFO out of balloons and a light inside. The two lazy students mocked Megumi's childish idea. However, Sakamoto rubbed the UFO against his head, and due to friction, the UFO's balloon stood up, looking like a real UFO. Seeing that the lazy students were doing nothing and just chatting, a girl with a covered face scolded them. Annoyed, the two lazy students went to a corner. They accidentally ran into Fukase, who showed them how to sabotage Sakamoto and disrupt the entire class. The next morning, as everyone arrived at school, because he saw all the balloons were punctured at the same time, Fukase wanted him and offered a reward to anyone who could capture Sakamoto. Saint had to run all over the school to avoid being caught by the other students. Seeing that Sakamoto was being hunted, the entire class suspected that Saint was the one who had popped all the class's balloons. And those two lazy guys suddenly became active in helping to redecorate the classroom. Saint was still running around to avoid being chased by other male students. And when he reached the stage inside the school, they had cornered Sakamoto, but Hayabusa appeared with his followers carrying supplies to rescue Saint. Hayabusa said that even if Fukase beat him to death, he would still try to rescue Sakamoto. Hayabusa revealed that Fukase was a thug who had been expelled and rarely came to school. But this time he came to school to find a way to get rid of Sakamoto because Saint was too famous. Meanwhile, everyone in Sakamoto's class was still trying to redecorate their classroom, and some mysterious girl stood outside the door and claimed that she was the one who had popped several balloons. As a result, the girls were very happy to learn that Sakamoto was not the culprit. Upon hearing this, the two lazy guys tried to tell everyone that the girl was lying. But they inadvertently revealed that they were the ones who had punctured the balloons. And it turned out that the mysterious girl was actually a disguise by Sakamoto. Soon after, when cornered, the two lazy guys threatened to pop all the balloons in the class. Sakamoto made a fake balloon gun to threaten them, but Saint used that gun to burst a few balloons. To everyone's astonishment, fearing that Sakamoto's gun might actually be real, the two guys surrendered. It turned out that the balloons had burst because Kubota used a mirror to reflect sunlight's heat. After punishing the two lazy guys, the whole class happily continued decorating their classroom. Hayabusa and his followers were also invited to come and make cotton candy. Megumi and two other girls sat down and shared the story of the first time they met Sakamoto. The first time Megumi met Saint was on the day of the grade transfer. Megumi recalls that the weather was very cold at that time, so she accidentally dropped her eraser because her hands were numb. Saint quickly picked up the eraser and rubbed it on his paper in a very rough manner. It turned out that Saint wanted to warm up the eraser to keep Megumi's hands warm. Megumi cherished Sakamoto's action and has kept the eraser until now. A girl with a loose braid mentioned that she met Sakamoto on a stormy day. While walking on the street, her umbrella was accidentally blown inside out by the wind. When she looked to the side, she saw that Sakamoto's umbrella was also turned inside out, but he used it to catch the rainwater and enjoyed it in a very noble way. Since then, this girl has fallen for Saint and also started to like rainy days more. The girl with braided hair met Sakamoto when she went to the library to borrow books. Because she was carrying too many books, she accidentally bumped into Sakamoto, but he easily caught all the books to her astonishment. Kubota happened to walk by and recalled the first time he met Sakamoto. At that time, Kubota had accidentally dropped a bandage from his tray, but Sakamoto picked it up and put it back on his finger as if it were an engagement ring. The girls bitterly realized that the moment Kubota met Sakamoto was the most romantic. The next day, while sitting in class, Kubota suddenly looked at Sakamoto infatuated. Even when the teacher called his name a dozen times, he didn't respond. It turned out that during a parent-teacher meeting, Kubota's mother discovered that Sakamoto was the real deal. And today Kubota unfortunately fell seriously ill and had to stay home for the day. So Kubota's mother disguised herself as him and went to school to see Sakamoto again. During the cooking class, Kubota's mother demonstrated domestic skills that amazed everyone. Sakamoto took a plate to taste the soup that Kubota's mother had just cooked and handed it back to her. Although Aina snatched the plate, which made Kubota's mother extremely angry. The group of girls fought over the plate because everyone wanted to indirectly kiss Sakamoto. By the time of gym class, Teacher Kakuta was at a loss for words seeing Sakamoto run in an evolution-like manner. Kubota's mother frantically chased after Saint, hoping to touch him, but because she was running so fast, she ended up falling face first. When Sakamoto arrived, she managed to get up on her own and left angrily. She realized that Sakamoto was trying to help Kubota, not her. Saint seemed to have also recognized that Kubota's mother was impersonating him. She accepted her fate of not being destined for handsome men and returned home to take care of her family. During the Christmas season, many people organized matchmaking parties between two groups of men and women. Two young men were planning to go on a date with a group of 3 girls but were short one person. So they went to invite Sakamoto when they saw him standing in the middle of the street. Soon after, the 2 young men brought Sakamoto to the party with the 3 girls. Both of them were outstanding students with plans to start a company in the future. The 3 girls were very impressed to learn that they were ambitious. However, when asked, Saint said he wanted to become an astronaut and go to Mars. This left both the 3 girls and the 2 young men astonished and speechless. Fearing that Saint would win all the girls' affection, the 2 guys suggested everyone go to karaoke. The brown-haired young man started singing a song to impress the girls. But while he was singing, everyone suddenly heard the sound of a saxophone from somewhere. It turned out that Saint was using his arm to play the saxophone. After seeing his amazing skill, the 3 girls were extremely impressed. The 2 guys also realized that Saint was a rival who needed to be eliminated. Soon after, the 2 young men ordered expensive drinks for everyone. But Sakamoto received a large Coca-Cola. They did this hoping that Sakamoto would burp loudly in front of the girls. After drinking the entire cup of Coca-Cola, the 2 young men told Sakamoto to sing a song for the group. He performed an opera song in German, which made the girls swoon over him. Meanwhile, the 2 guys were waiting to see if he would burp while singing. Saint's singing attracted all the other girls in the karaoke bar to gather around. He used his burp to dramatically end the song, leaving the 2 guys speechless. The girls from outside frantically rushed in to fight over Sakamoto. When Saint left, the girls chased after him, leaving the 2 guys sitting alone. Since Hayabusa's mother passed away early, his father had to raise him and his 2 siblings on his own. His father was about to go on a blind date with a woman to find a stepmother for the children. But when Hayabusa learned he had to attend, he felt anxious. The next day, Hayabusa asked Sakamoto to teach him how to eat politely. Being a delinquent, he feared he would embarrass himself in front of his father's new bride. On the day of the blind date, Hayabusa's father invited the woman to a French restaurant. Sakamoto hid behind Hayabusa to help him eat with proper manners. But when the server brought out boiled snails, Hayabusa felt like vomiting and couldn't bear to eat them. However, he forced himself to eat everything because he didn't want his father to be embarrassed. And the woman praised him for being sophisticated and knowing how to appreciate fine cuisine. After the meal ended, the woman asked to speak privately with Hayabusa's father. So Hayabusa and Sakamoto wore the same coat and took a walk to kill time. But they suddenly saw Hayabusa's father and the woman being confronted by a gang of thugs who were trying to rob them. Hayabusa didn't want his future stepmother to know he was a delinquent. So he switched places with Sakamoto. He hid inside the coat while fighting the gang. Hayabusa then beat the gang severely. It turned out the woman had tricked Hayabusa's father into the date to rob him. The thugs, still not defeated, attacked again, but Hayabusa extended his arms out of the coat, making Sakamoto appear like a monster. Scaring the woman away, the gang of thugs fled in fear, and Hayabusa's father fainted from shock. When winter came, Sakamoto mentioned that he had never seen snow before. Kubota assumed that Saint must be from a country where it's sunny all year round. Akin suggested he would teach Sakamoto how to play in the snow. The first game he taught Sakamoto was to fall into the snow to leave an imprint of their body. But Sakamoto fell right on top of the imprint Akin had just made. And everyone was amazed that the shape they created together resembled something from a biology textbook. Next, Akin taught Sakamoto how to build a proper snowman. But Sakamoto created a large snowman with the shape of a woman standing tall. Akin sadly walked away, thinking Sakamoto was always better than him. Fukase suddenly appeared and realized that Akin wanted to beat Sakamoto at least once. After receiving advice from Fukase, Akin challenged Saint to a snowball fight. The two of them built snow walls and hid behind them, throwing snowballs at each other. But Sakamoto threw snowballs so fast, like a machine gun, that Akin's whole body was in pain. Suddenly, Sakamoto placed something inside a snowball and slowly rolled it toward Akin. Akin was terrified, thinking Saint had hidden a bomb in the snowball. Just as Akin was about to stand up and attack, Sakamoto knocked him down with a single snowball. Akin then realized that what Sakamoto had rolled toward him was a hand warmer. Not a bomb. Sakamoto had dozens of hand warmers attached to his body. On the way home, Akin was so frustrated about losing to Sakamoto that he cried. Fukase appeared, saying that Akin wouldn't be in so much pain if Sakamoto didn't exist. Sakamoto's class was buzzing with excitement as the end-of-year celebrations approached. Everyone was looking at photos from their first year together. Meanwhile, Akin was still troubled by what Fukase had said to him the day before. Hayabusa was very worried because Fukase still hadn't graduated this year. He explained that Fukase was actually very smart but chose to stay behind and be a delinquent leader. Akin took a photo of himself with two friends and went outside to think. Fukase appeared, saying that since Akin had gotten closer to Sakamoto, he had become weak. Fukase remarked that Akin and the rest of the class were like flies following Sakamoto. He then tried to convince Akin to get rid of Sakamoto to reclaim his position. Soon after, everyone gathered in the auditorium for the end-of-year ceremony. Even though Saint was only a first-year student, he was chosen to represent the students and give a speech on stage. Sakamoto hit a ball into the auditorium ceiling, shocking everyone. The ball collided with another ball already on the ceiling. While Sakamoto was giving his speech, Akin suddenly approached with a baseball bat. When teacher Kakuta tried to intervene, Akin swung the bat and burned off his hair. The other students were extremely frightened by Akin's behavior. After losing his beautiful hair, teacher Kakuta froze like a statue. Hayabusa's group rushed over in panic when they heard what was happening. Akin went into a frenzy, swinging the bat to attack Saint. But no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't land a hit on Sakamoto. While dodging the attacks, Saint calmly continued reading his farewell speech to the third-year students, making everyone believe it was just a staged performance. When Sakamoto climbed to the second level of the stage, Akin followed him. However, when Akin tried to strike, He missed and fell, but Sakamoto caught him by the hand, stunning everyone. Yet, Akin angrily demanded that Saint let him go and repeatedly hit Sakamoto's hand with the bat. Despite Akin hitting Sakamoto repeatedly, he still refused to let go of his hand. Sakamoto wrapped his pants around the railing to slowly lower Akin to the ground. Sakamoto pretended to hold Akin's hand as if they had just finished a performance together. After realizing his mistake, Akin confessed to everyone that it was Fukase who had incited him. The third-year students all graduated and left the school, except for Fukase. However, Hayabusa and his gang suddenly arrived to congratulate him. Saint struck Fukase with a knee, causing him to fall backward, while Hayabusa and his gang pushed him out of the school to force him to graduate. In the end, their graduation ceremony went smoothly. However, the entire class was saddened to hear the news that Sakamoto had to go to the US with his family. As Sakamoto stood giving his farewell speech to the class, Sarah suddenly threw a cake at him. Following Sarah's lead, the whole class threw cakes as part of a farewell party for Sakamoto. But in reality, they were trying to hide their tears so they wouldn't cry in front of him. As Sakamoto left the classroom, Hayabusa also arrived to say goodbye to him. Finally, Sakamoto stood in the schoolyard to bid farewell to the friends who had been by his side all this time. Today's video ends here. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to the channel to support Oni-chan in the next videos. Thank you for watching. Love you always.